Welcome to HD News Travel Documentary. They say Boston is the city of knowledge. So why are cold, heartless wheels crushing communities of addicts, people without homes, without a future? Let's care about the forgotten lives. Subscribe to our channel. We will continue to share raw, real stories that no newspaper dares to publish. And now, we quietly dive deeper into the heart of Boston's homelessness crisis, a breathless battleground between life and death, between drug addiction and a system that has given up. You're watching a travel documentary about the homelessness crisis, unlike anything you've seen before. This is a journey into the dark side of Boston, where homelessness, addiction, and pain intersect with the city's busiest tourist routes. Right in the heart of this so-called civilized city lies a truth never told on the guided tours, a homelessness crisis spreading like an oil spill, with its epicenter in a desperate community, unhoused individuals struggling with drug addiction and nowhere to turn. According to a 2024 report from the Massachusetts Institute for Community Health, at least 6,400 people are currently experiencing homelessness in Boston. Among them, nearly 40% use hard drugs such as fentanyl, heroin, or methamphetamine. Even worse, overdose deaths have increased by over 120% in the past 5 years, most occurring on the streets, in parks, or at bus stops. The area known as Mass and Cass, the intersection of Massachusetts Avenue and Melnia Cass Boulevard, has become a dark symbol. No longer a spot on the tourist map, it's now home to hundreds of people struggling with addiction, living in makeshift tents, surrounded by needles, trash, and overwhelming despair. Residents living nearby call it the lawless zone, a place where police only show up when violence breaks out, and social services are overwhelmed, understaffed, and underfunded. Nonprofits report that, on average, there's only one rehab bed available for every 12 people in need. The question is, how can a city that spent over $2.3 billion on infrastructure projects last year not have enough resources to help these people get back on their feet? Do you think a modern city can just stand by while thousands of people slowly waste away beneath the very monuments of freedom? Comment 1 and share your thoughts. Your voice matters. You can help spark change. The root cause goes beyond the numbers. It lies in a system that's crumbling under years of neglect, policy division, and a culture of passing the buck disguised as bureaucracy. For years, the city and state have played the blame game over who's responsible for managing homelessness hotspots, resulting in fragmented budgets, stalled strategies, and conflicting efforts. Meanwhile, inflation is soaring, housing prices are skyrocketing, and the government has failed to rein in the real estate frenzy, forcing thousands out of their former homes. People who once had stable jobs are now homeless, simply because they couldn't keep up with rent for a few months. The public welfare system, from social services to mental health care, is severely overwhelmed. And when policies prioritize economic growth over human development, it's the most vulnerable who get left behind first. The heartbreaking truth is this: unfair budget allocation, coupled with silent stigma in society, has pushed this issue to the margins. They're not seen as citizens, they're seen as trash in the eyes of some. But in reality, they are someone's children, siblings, people who once had dreams, and once had a home. And who suffers the most? Not investors. Not politicians. It's women, children, and addicts who can't protect themselves. On the cold sidewalks of the city, many women are forced to trade their bodies just for a place to sleep for the night. Children grow up surrounded by needles and the sound of desperate screams. Those struggling with severe addiction are increasingly seen as worthless, pushed out of every support program, written off by society. One heartbreaking example is Teresa, 34, a mother of 2. After her husband was killed in a robbery, she fell into depression and began using painkillers. She lost her job, her home, and eventually custody of her children. When we met her, Teresa was sitting on a sidewalk in Roxbury, clutching an old photograph, her face vacant, her hands and feet purple from the cold. She said, "I just want to see my kids one more time. Then I can go." Then there's Jamal, 19, once a computer science student at a prestigious university. A serious accident led to a morphine prescription, and from there, a downward spiral into addiction. Disowned by his parents, his scholarship revoked, Jamal now lives in a nylon tent next to the train tracks. He suffers frequent seizures and is almost completely unable to find work or access medical care. They are the most vulnerable, and they're paying the highest price for a system that stopped putting people first long ago. These forgotten lives are slowly rising up in their own way. If you're watching, comment too to show your support and help bring strength to those living at the very bottom of society. When it comes to rebuilding a life, two core pillars are always education and healthcare. But in Boston, both are shaking, especially for those living on the margins of society. The public education system is struggling with staff shortages, lack of resources, and most critically, a lack of tailored programs for homeless children. According to the Massachusetts Department of Education, in 2023, over 3,200 students in the Boston area were without stable housing. Many of them can't maintain consistent schooling, some drop out to help support their families, or simply to survive. When it comes to healthcare, the situation is even more dire. Public hospitals are overwhelmed, free clinics are facing budget cuts, and people struggling with addiction have almost no access to specialized treatment. Boston has fewer than 5 fully licensed rehab centers, yet thousands are in desperate need of help. Those lucky enough to get in often wait weeks, or even months, for a spot, while just one day of delay can mean the difference between life and death. The most frightening part isn't that they're sick, it's that they're not being treated, not being educated, not being allowed to live as ordinary citizens. What do you think? Share your feelings in the comments below. Amid this bleak picture, there are still efforts being made to rebuild, not just by individuals, but by the system itself. In recent years, the city of Boston and several international organizations have begun implementing practical intervention programs aimed at restoring dignity and quality of life for these forgotten communities. Notable initiatives include the Housing First program, which provides temporary housing to homeless individuals before requiring them to undergo rehab or employment. Additionally, the World Health Organization, WHO, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, have funded several projects focused on education, public healthcare, and psychological support in areas with high homelessness rates. These multidisciplinary intervention models have proven effective in reducing relapse rates and improving social reintegration. More importantly, the involvement of the community, from volunteer groups, churches, and schools, to individuals willing to share their time and compassion, is gradually reshaping how society views the homelessness crisis. This is no longer someone else's problem, it's a shared responsibility. Light doesn't come from a single policy. It comes from how we treat one another, from even the smallest acts of kindness. Because in a world growing colder under the weight of economic pressures and social demands, compassion remains the final foundation for recovery. We need to believe that every person, no matter their past, deserves a second chance. And sometimes, that chance begins with a judgment-free glance, a warm meal, or simply being called by their name. What do you think is the key to helping someone rise from rock bottom? Share your thoughts, because even the smallest reflections can help us build a more compassionate society. We've just taken a journey, not to observe, but to feel. Not to judge, but to understand. This travel documentary didn't take you to beaches or skyscrapers, it took you to the people, to the lives existing on the edge of progress. In the fast-moving stream of global tourism, maybe it's time for a new perspective, a way to explore countries not just through landmarks and scenic views, but through the raw truths of society, through what's happening behind the gleaming glass walls of modern cities. Boston is not just a destination, it's an example. A reminder that no nation is immune to humanitarian crises. And it's in places like this that human values and moral integrity must be reflected on and elevated more than ever. When combined with travel, documentary filmmaking becomes more than just entertainment, it becomes a powerful tool to spark compassion, ignite social dialogue, and even inspire real-world action. It's not just governments or international organizations, communities, from local residents to travelers themselves, play a vital role in the process of change. The attention, respect, and willingness to share information from tourists can help bring hidden issues into the light. Every citizen, every small action, whether it's supporting a nonprofit, joining a volunteer program, or simply changing the way we see the homeless, can make a real impact. When a society chooses compassion over profit, listens before it judges, and is willing to open its arms, crises like the one in Boston no longer remain lingering wounds, they become opportunities for healing, for unity, and for growth. If you've made it this far, you are already part of the change. Every view, every share, every comment you leave is a small step toward a more just and compassionate world. Help us spread this message, not for the algorithm, but for humanity. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey together, not just exploring the world, but also the human heart. Thank you for being with us.